about 2 hours up or so. They had 2 pretty wild pit bulls, very reactive, that we worked with. Worked with them for maybe like an hour and a half or so, got them into a pretty stable spot, so that was pretty sweet.
Nice.
And we'll kind of see what else is new in the old dog world. I've got an interesting board and train that's going to be coming in here. I got to talk to Michelle about it today. I have a meeting with her, I think at 3:00 to go over it, because it's a client that started one-on-ones, and the dog is really proven to be challenging. So the dog is going to be coming in for a board and train. I think it's going to make a pretty interesting case.
Really?
Just a wild, like, French bulldog, English bulldog mix of sorts.
Really?
Which I'll tell you, the fucking Frenchies and the English bulldogs and the old English bulldogs, you want to talk about dogs that sometimes when you're working with them, you want to just like beat your head repeatedly against the wall. Those breeds make you want to do that.
I could see that.
So yeah, well, I'm very curious to see. I don't have all of the details of that dog just yet. All I know is Michelle sat me down. She's like, listen, I got this fucking client I'm working with, and he's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And, we need to try something a little bit more intensive with him to see if we can get some stability. So that might present a good topic as well, because I have always preached that if you can't solve things via one-on-one sessions, that is a skill issue, right? Not a program issue. It's something I've always stood pretty firmly behind, right? And I don't want to like act like I'm backpedaling on that statement, because I still do believe that. But there is some merit to, like, there are some things I think a board and train can be just way more effective with.
Okay.
So I think that will also present some good conversation as far as that's concerned.
Sure.
So, damn, I don't have my little fucking notebook. Hold on, let me grab my notebook. Ask questions, people.
Yeah.
Let me grab my notebook.
Ask us away. He'll be right back.
Got it.
Oh, it wasn't too far away. How many? You can't have very many pages left in that thing.
Just a teeny tiny bit right there.
Wow. Might be the first in history.
I have a notebook that I finally finished at work also, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah? Oh, I bet it felt so good.
Yeah, dude, it was great. Just like flipping over that last page.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about regression. We're going to talk about 2 crazy pit bulls. We got a question already, but there's not much to talk. Dude, I did an entire podcast on this. Just pivot. I did an entire podcast on that already. You missed it. It's like a couple episodes ago. I think if I remember correctly, just look back a couple episodes and you'll see there's one I did called like One Dog Training System to Rule Them All, I think was one of them. Yeah. And then the other one that I did on it was, I think, Ego Death. No, maybe it wasn't that one, actually. Which one? I don't know. Just go back a couple episodes. You'll find it. Oh, yeah, the gatekeepers of the dog training world might have been it. No, drama in the dog industry. I think that was it. There is over the last month, I've done 2 or 3 podcasts, not like explicitly where the entire podcast is on this topic, but I touched on it. So if you're curious and listening to that, by all means, listen to it. Right?
We're trying to stay away from the drama.
I'm dramaed out right now at this point. Right? So 2 crazy pit bulls, and then we're gonna talk about pro con of board and train and one-on-ones. Yes, I did see that video. We talked about that in the last episode. And did a great job with the dog also, by the way. So, okay. So yeah, I was working with a client the other day, and they had mentioned something a handful of times over the course of the last handful of sessions that I've done with them. They were basically saying, they were nervous going into wintertime because last year when winter had, they did all this training work with their dog, And as they approached winter and they stopped working with the dog as much, understandably, because it's fucking cold out,
Right.
that they noticed their dog regressed a lot.
Yeah.
And they were concerned that this coming winter that was going to happen again. And basically they were alluding to or connecting the dots of less repetition equals regression.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't subscribe to that mentality, right? I think a lot of times people look at successive training and whether their dog knows things or repeatedly does the things that they want them to do or not, and they think it really is just like a use it or lose it game, where, you know, if I stop working my bed stays or I stop going for walks in busy public places, that somehow the next time I go into busy public places, if it's 3 months from now, my dog is going to be terrible because of it, right? And I just wholeheartedly disagree with that premise. And I'll kind of explain why, right? So we work with dogs, like we've been working with dogs for a long time, right? Like I've had a business now since, 2014. We've had a lot of dogs come through the system, and we've had a lot of clients reach out to us like years later of like, life got in the way, things started slipping a little bit. They want to do a follow-up session. They want to kind of get back on track with things. And we work with them. And this interesting thing happens every time we do that. Every single time we do that, assuming this dog has done a complete training program with us, and assuming that dog was good by the end of the training program, what happens is these dogs come in, life got in the way, they stopped using their e-collar, they stopped correcting for things, they stopped rewarding for things, insert whatever, right? They just they slipped on how they were doing stuff with the dog, and the dog was out of practice for, in some cases, like years before reaching back out to us. And as soon as we take the dog and we start working the dog and we start enforcing things how we always used to enforce things, the dog immediately performs exactly how we want them to perform, right? So that tells me that if a dog can instantaneously turn back on listening mode, right, or turn back on well-behaved mode, that this has nothing to do with them forgetting stuff because they've been out of practice with it.
Right.
This has to do with reinforcement dissipating over time, right? So behavioral issues, right? Compliance of commands, like any of those types of things are contingent on the consistent reinforcement of them. And those behaviors will have an extinction cycle over time, right? So like hypothetically, if my dog has not, like my dogs have now at this point, like jumping is a behavior that's been virtually extinguished with them, right? They don't do it anymore. But let's say 4 months from now, one of my dogs decides that they're going to go jump on a person, right? For whatever reason, arousal got too high, they just like were enticed by the person to do it, whatever, right? Insert whatever reason why they would do it. But let's say they tried to do it again, right? And in that moment, there was no punishment event that solidified in their mind that you still can't do this. That behavior, the extinction cycle of that behavior will slowly, actually not really slowly, fairly quickly dissipate. And very shortly after that, we're going to start to see that they're going to try to do it again, right? And then what's going to happen is, again, the extinction cycle will even more quickly start to dissipate, and they'll try to do it again. And that behavior will just re-arise, right? Same applies with compliance of commands. Let's say, we'll use a recall as the easiest example here. Let's say I'm out in the field working with my dogs, and they have either been reinforced very consistently for coming when called, or they have been punished for noncompliance of not listening to a recall for coming when called, obviously, very, very consistently. And they're at a place where the behavior is just solid, right? You say come, they come. There's no need for punishment for noncompliance. There's no need to even reinforce them at that point because they just are listening, right? And because that behavior is then in a really good spot, what tends to happen is people just think, oh, okay, my dog knows come. So over time, what happens is they stop bringing their e-collar on their walks, or they stop bringing their rewards out on their walks, or when they're taking their dog out and about. And that one-off time that the dog blows you off and doesn't listen, we're not in a position to correct, right? Or we're not in a position to reward for the compliance of it. And very quickly, that behavior will start to extinguish, right? The reinforcement and the you have to do it disappears, and the incentive for them doing it disappears. So why would they continue to do it then at that point, right? So when I hear people tell me that their dog's behavior is slipping and they feel like it's because they're out of practice, that couldn't be further from the truth. The closest thing, or the thing that's actually going on in those moments, is that we tend to stop enforcing things the way that we intended to do so when we first started training the behavior. So of course, there's no incentive for the dog to do it, and the behavior gets extinguished over time, right? Another common thing that I'll see, and with this client, I noticed this with them in the follow-up session that I was doing, is that if we look at how we stopped a behavior with the dog when it was at its peak intensity, so like let's take, again, jumping or like reactivity out the window or something like that. And let's say when we first started working with the dog, that behavior was really intense and we had to create a strong inhibition for that behavior by using a really firm punishment, right? Throwing out just like specific numbers or whatever. Like let's say I had to use a 75 on the e-collar in order to inhibit that unwanted behavior, right? What tends to happen as soon as we've extinguished that behavior, because the dog is doing so good moving forward, when that behavior inevitably tries to resurface, people will, because they kind of are like, oh, you're doing so good, you're not as amped up now, this and that, they start trying to correct it at like a 30 or a 35, right? And what happens is, again, over time, even though it's the same behavior, we start treating it differently as far as how we're punishing it and the severity in which we're punishing it. So the dog starts trying to fight through those consequences, and it becomes less of a big deal for them to want to avoid it. So the behavior starts coming back, and then we forget that how we stopped it in the first place was by using a more intense consequence, and now we're switching that and pivoting that completely and using a lower consequence for it. So of course, obviously, the dogs are going to fight through it, and it's just not going to be it's going to regress over time, because the intensity in which we're using to stop the behavior disappears. So the extinction of the behavioral issue obviously starts to disappear because of that. So you just got to look at, like, when you're noticing your behavior. Like, I don't care if like I don't have people come over my house very often, right? But like, when I do have people come over my house, even if it's once every 2 months or so, my dogs still listen all the same, even though they're not practicing it constantly, because in that moment, they know that when people come over and I ask them to do this thing, that consistently forever and ever, this is going to be the result of either doing it or not doing it, right? So it's predictable, and it doesn't need to be practiced all the time, because it just is what it is. So don't. I think the reason why I bring this up is it's not really that necessary to be practicing something all the time, right? The important thing is that when you practice these things, you're practicing them in a consistent and predictable manner. And you look at what I did to stop the thing initially is what I need to do to maintain the extinction of that behavior forever moving forward, right? Treat it just as seriously as if it was, like happening all the time, when it happens only. Jesus Christ, it's driving me crazy. Treat it just as seriously as if dude, there's got to be a way I can turn that off. That is really driving me insane. Treat it just as seriously as if it was happening for the first time ever, right? And as long as you do that, like, it will, like if I was I use the bank robbing example all the time, I feel like, but like if I was like a prolific bank robber, right, and I was robbing banks all the fucking time, like, I'm obviously going to get in big trouble for that, right?
Yeah.
Like whether if I was trying to do it every weekend, like when I get arrested, I'm going to get said consequence for it. It's going to be a serious consequence, because robbing banks is a big no-no, right? But let's say I'm like on the straight and narrow, and I'm not like robbing banks too much anymore. And then for whatever reason, 10 years later, I'm like strapped on cash, and I'm like, maybe I'll go try to rob a bank. the consequence in that moment is going to be just as serious as when I was a prolific bank robber still, because it's still a completely unacceptable behavior, right? So we need to make sure that obviously we're treating our behavioral issues the same way, right? Like reacting out the window, whether they're doing it every single day, multiple times a day, or they decide for whatever reason 5 years later that one dog walking down the street they have a problem with and they want to start reacting at it, it should be treated just as intensely still.
Yeah.
So that's an important point that I need everybody to make sure that they're realizing here.
For sure.
Okay, so that's regression.
Yeah.
2 crazy pit bulls. So I was in Connecticut. I had a client reach out before I'd gotten out there, and they were like, listen, it's a little bit of a hike, but we'd really like to make the trip down. You know, we're a long time listeners of the podcast. We've been following you forever. You know, we want to obviously get a little bit of help in working through some of these issues. So hell yeah, cool.
Yeah,
Love it.
awesome.
They made the trip down. And like I said, I worked with them for like an hour and a half or so. And they just had these two dogs. They were getting in fights with each other, but the one dog was like a new rescue. And they were just like, they were honestly like, this is going to be too, like, we have too much stuff going on. We think we're just going to rehome this dog to like our pet sitter. So like the priority wasn't, you know, obviously getting these dogs to socialize with each other. But as soon as they came there, I could tell like these dogs were just out of control. Right? Just pulling all over the place, reactive towards everything, like, and real fucking reactive. Right. And where I stay out in Connecticut, it's very, very pet friendly, very walkable, very obviously good for training sessions with this kind of stuff, obviously. Right. So we did what I talked about that we did with my client from Chicago. I strapped some e-collars on them and we isolated the reactivity. We went for walks. I wasn't worried about heel or anything. I was just punishing for the reactivity every time they did it. And we ended the session in an awesome spot where we see dogs, they ignore the dogs, they walk on, life is good, right? Session 1, it was just like a super basic, let's just get some stability over this, you know, and start to chip away at some of the behavioral issues that were leading to these fights happening in the first place. Because as we see over and over and over again, like when people call me and tell me dogs lived together for like 2 months, there was no problem, then suddenly a fight broke out. It's like there's always these seemingly little unrelated behavioral issues that lead to it, right?
Yeah.
And it's in this case, it's just we didn't have control over the dogs, and I don't think people realize how much of a liability it is to live with a dog that you don't have control over their behavior, right? And on top of that, when you have explosive reactivity, even if it's not like aggression, like that is such a charged up emotional state that dog is getting into that we have no ability to control. And we've just managed the dog over and over again, right? Until we can't manage it anymore. And then like and then we add another dog into the mix.
Right.
Right. And it's like, we're already living with one dog that we have no ability to influence their behavior, and they are of the state of mind of doing whatever the heck they want to do whenever they want to do it, right? And we're bringing a dog into the house basically going like,
Right.
I really hope this goes good. I really hope my dog accepts this other dog.
Right.
Right. And I'm trying, and these clients were wonderful. Like they didn't like I'm not like trying to bash on them by any means. I'm just kind of using this as an example of what I see consistently in the dog world is like, you know, because these clients had done training with these dogs. They have actively tried to get these dogs under control, right?
Yeah.
Or at least their first dog I know that they had, right? They're obviously great, but so many people don't try. They just think it's just not a big deal, right? And then like I said, they bring another dog into the house, and it really is like, I hope Fluffy likes bingo, right? And like I just hope that there doesn't turn into any problems because of it or anything like that. And it just always turns into problems,
Right.
and like
Every time.
And it's like, when I bring dogs into my house, like I need to know that I could tell them, you have to accept this dog.
Yeah.
Right. And if I can't control your behavior elsewhere, how am I going to ensure that I could tell them you have to accept this dog? Right. Which is why all the time it's like we just, the fighting situations are just out of control right now. It's just, there's so many people calling that are like, I've had my dogs for 2 years. I mean, all the time. I have another consult I'm doing Friday with a family that has 2 dogs that lived together for 3 years. And then, boom, out of nowhere, massive dog fight breaks out, right? And then what happens is after that first one, as we just talked about with the last thing a minute ago with the regression, right? Like, it's on the table, right? It happened, so it's on the table now. So, of course, they're going to go to it quicker next time, right? Now it's definitely on the table, so they're going to go to it even quicker next time. And this family wound up having 3 serious fights over the course of like a week after these dogs living together for fucking 3 years.
That's wild.
Right? And it is because, I promise you, right? It's not that these dogs are dog aggressive. If these dogs were just dog aggressive, there would have been a fight immediately. There would have been a fight immediately. But it's over time, over 3 years, there have been probably an infinite amount of situations where you tried to tell your dog, I need you to do this or I need you to not do this. And the dog said, fuck you. Right? They said, I'm not going to do it. Right. And because of that, when they inevitably ran into a situation where if the dog's telling you, fuck you, I don't want to do it, you better believe when the other dog tries to influence their behavior in a way that they don't like, they're definitely going to tell them fuck you in that moment. And how are they going to tell them fuck you? In a way that dogs tell other dogs fuck you, just trying to fight them. Right? Or correct them for things.
Pretty much, yeah.
And it turns into a problem. So like, this all gets solved by before you add dogs into your household. Right? When you get your very first dog, you make sure you have non-negotiable control over them. I mean, that is like nothing can be more important than ensuring we have non-negotiable control over our dog.
Yeah.
Right? And this is why the force-free community is fucking stupid, right? Is because like you literally run into a situation where it's like we make everything negotiable with our dog. Right? We make everything a debate on if they can do it or not do it. And of course, there's some things that are not that fucking important, right? And we could make as fun as possible and we could do tricks and make things debatable and stuff. But like our dog needs to know that if push came to shove and I told you, I need for you to do this right now, or I need for you to not do this right now, whether it's one thing every month or whether it's one thing every fucking year, right? If the dog does not realize you ultimately are going to have the full say in them needing to do that thing,
right,
you are always at the mercy of your dog, right? It's just
very much
humanize things all day, right? Like parents don't do that. Like parents have to have authority over their children, right? Or else everything falls apart, right? Like. And you know, obviously there are so many distinct differences between parenting children and parenting dogs, obviously, owning dogs. There are so many differences, obviously. And obviously, you know, we deal with like, we hit a point as we're progressing with our kids. I think where most of the conflict and the issues happen is as the child starts to hit a point where it's like that we are nurturing them to go off on their own. You know what I mean? Like at a certain point, we have to tell our child, like, you need to go into this world and live your own life. And we are not going to be in control over you anymore. And I think that's where I look at like my relationship with my parents. I have a wonderful relationship with my parents, but like there was a point of serious contention that we had for me around the age of probably like 13 to 17, right? Yeah. Where it was, you know, like things weren't as debate, you know, they were more debatable at that point, right? There was an opportunity where it's like, I could just go and fucking live off on my own somewhere or whatever. You know what I mean? That never happens with dogs. The dog is always under your door. It's always your dog that you have complete control over, that you fucking, you know what I mean? Like things are never debatable with your dog. If I tell you to do this, I need you to do this.
Yes.
And
non-negotiable.
And people don't live that life with their dogs. They just don't. So when they add other dogs into their household, you know, if there's conflict, you cannot non-debatably solve that conflict. Right?
Yeah.
And then you have to backpedal when it boils over to a point where it's turned into a safety issue, whether for the other dogs in your house or whether for people coming into your house. And then we have to backpedal and fix all of the years of us having a debatable relationship with our dog and try to get our dog to view us as a non-debatable figure of authority in the home. And just imagine how fucking difficult that is.
Right.
Like, just imagine if, like, suddenly, right? Like, I'm trying to find a human example, right? Like your sister, right? Like, let's say your sister, who you've just had this, whatever, dude, we got a relationship. It's cool. I like you. You like me, but, like, you're not in charge of me, right? Yeah. And then somehow, right, after 13 years, your sister said, no, I'm in control of you right now. I'm responsible for you. I'm in control of you. I need for you to listen to me. And imagine the conflict that would create as you strive towards a point of you realizing, like, it's futile for me to fight back against this. I have to succumb to your authority. You know what I mean? You just imagine how fucking insane and difficult that would be.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we're doing with dogs. That is what we are doing with dogs. But, like, what's the alternative?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what is the alternative?
Live in constant fear, I guess.
Live in constant fear and management, have no control over dogs, like, live a one-dog household life. I mean, because, like, I guess the alternative in the case of, like, inter-household aggression issues is, like, either you fucking figure it out and you get that authority over your dog and you fight that fight to get to a place where we get stability, right? Or we say, I just have to be a one-dog household. And that's your decision to make, obviously. But, like, you know?
Yeah.
All right. Heidi is asking questions here.
Yep.
What do we got?
All right. Let's see. Can you talk about needing big boss energy, that's quote unquote, when working with powerful high drive WLGSDs? Took in a sibling of my dog because he bites and constantly challenges his owners. 5 minutes with me and he's an angel. He's 16 months old. Training / working with him, and he's been great with me, but he growls, bites, jumps, and scratches up his owners. I need to figure out the best way to teach the owners on how to handle him. So hard trying to explain the quote-unquote grow some balls. They have great pedigree and come from awesome lines, stable, confident, absolutely perfect.
So define grow some balls? You know what I mean? Like, okay, so, and I am serious when I say that, because you are saying the solution for the owner being able to work through these is they need to grow some balls. But that's useless information. I think obviously, and I know you're probably being a little facetious when you say that, right? But define grow some balls. Like, what exactly? Yeah, don't be a pansy or pushover. But same deal. What does that mean? Right? Like, what exactly do they need to do in order to not be a pansy or pushover? Right? There's when you boil this down, we get all the way to, like, okay, then people will say, well, they need to start correcting the dog. Okay, well, define correcting the dog. What exactly do they need to correct the dog? Right? For me, when I'm using an e-collar, they need to condition a punishment marker, right? And they need to attach a consequence to it. Right? In this case, a higher level e-collar correction, right? So I need to start telling them exactly what I need you to do, right? This is not debatable information. I need you to make sure the e-collar's on the dog all the time when you're in the house with them. And I pick one of those fucking behavioral issues. What'd they say? He growls, bites, jumps, and scratches up his owners. So, okay, let's pick jumping and scratching the owners, because both of those involve him putting paws up on them. I need you to have the e-collar on all the time in the house. I need you to make sure the level is preset to insert whatever number, 75, I don't know, whatever, right? And I need for every time he takes a paw and touches you in any way, shape, or form with that paw to say no, then pick up your e-collar remote and hit the button, right? Undebatable, concrete information, no room for interpretation, right? Just clearly following a punishment principle in order to stop a behavioral issue.
Right.
Right? And then we start there. Why isn't he ready for an e-collar? You said, okay, so you said I barely have to correct him, right? What we have to do with the dog is irrelevant to what the owner has to do with the dog, right? Like, I don't care. Like, a lot of the dogs I work with, I barely have to correct also, right? But like, that doesn't mean that magically the owner should need to, right? And then you said he's not ready for an e-collar, nor are the owners. He's only with you for a few weeks. Why not? Why not? I put an e-collar on a dog pretty much right away. I follow punishment protocols virtually right away with new dogs. You know, I just talked about the 2 crazy pit bulls that I worked with, that I had an hour and a half with them, and they'd never been on e-collars. We followed a punishment protocol to stop the reactivity. I had 4 days with my client that came in from Chicago that was in for massive leash reactivity issues. In 4 days, we were able to completely stop his leash reactivity, which, by the way, got an update from her. Pretty cool one. Hold on.
Ooh, let's hear it.
Hold on.
Holding.
Hold on. Let me find it. Yeah, here we go. Got it. Yeah, I got this Saturday. Bunch of pictures. Ember update. He is having the best summer ever, enjoying his newfound freedom. We have explored so much these last few months. Thank you for making this possible. He's been so good, and his recall is fantastic. And I got a bunch of pictures of him just living his freaking life, right? But this dog was massively reactive, right? 4 days. Put an e-collar on him day 1, started punishing the reactivity. Day 2, same deal. Day 3, we started using the e-collar for a recall. Day 4, we just kind of pieced it all together.
Yeah.
Right. So Heidi, I'm half joking right now, half not joking, obviously, when I say what's holding you back. I mean, there's nothing holding you back from being able to put an e-collar on the dog and start punishing jumping immediately, right? And it's not going to screw anything up as long as you're following a clear contingency with it. Now, you said the owners are apprehensive about the e-collar and you're worried they're going to fuck it up. Don't worry so much. Make it easy for them, right? If we give gray information of just like, use the e-collar, but like, whatever, don't do this, don't do that. Like, tell them, as I just said, right? Like, my exact homework for them would be put the e-collar on the dog, have it on all day, right? Do not use it for anything else. Right? You can even fucking write it out if you want to so that they can't screw it up, right? And have it preset at a level that's high enough to inhibit the behavior, and start pairing no with a stim on the e-collar every time the dog puts a paw on you, right? Written out. Then at that point, it's black and white. There's nothing debatable at that point. And if they do screw it up and start using it for all this other stuff, it's like, at a certain point, we gotta just like, that's not my problem. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I literally explicitly told you not to do that. And again, especially if you even write it out for them.
Yeah. Stop doing that.
Don't do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but Heidi, it doesn't matter what you can get the dog to do. You said he's pulling like a freight train with them and you took the leash for 2 seconds. He's perfect with you. It literally doesn't matter how the dog is with you. Right? You need to coach the owner through. Don't worry about them screwing things up. Give them better information so they don't screw it up. Right? You'd said, he doesn't even know place or down. This dog that I just described that I worked with for 4 days didn't know anything. And all we taught him was a recall. We never worked on place or down or anything like that because that was irrelevant to their issues. And in this case, the dog jumping all over the owners and scratching them, you do not need the dog to know anything in order to stop those things. So I'm hearing a lot of kind of like excuses here as far as, what's holding you back from giving them, empowering them with a way to inhibit the behavioral issues. And you need to figure out a way to be able to get there. You said they're scared of him. Of course they're scared of him if he's a big dog that's jumping all over them and scratching them and trying to bite them and stuff. But none of this changes that you need to empower them with a way to start getting this dog under control, right? And that comes from giving a clear and predictable way to hold the dog accountable for things. And then at that point, we see what we get. I had this, I'll zoom out, big picture this. I did a consult with, while I was in Connecticut as well, I did a consult with a trainer. A trainer called me. Same deal, longtime follower. Kind of funny, almost exact same situation as what you're describing, just with a smaller package dog. This dog, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was a Frenchie as well.
Of course.
No, Heidi, I don't think without an e-collar it's impossible, but like it's way fucking easier than a lot of other tools. So You know, why would I not pick something that's going to be the easiest thing for the owner to use? Because if I'm trying to rely on leash pressure, right, or leash corrections and stuff like that, like I think we all know how hard it is for your average owner to learn how to really, like the mechanics of delivering an intense leash correction to a dog, like that takes skill to learn, and there's a lot more room for fucking that up because most people way underdo it, right? You know, because they physically don't think that they're strong enough in order to deliver a big one. Then you're delivering unmotivating corrections that are nagging the dog and putting you in a position where they're going to get bit way easier because you're pissing the dog off. So listen, Heidi, if you want help with this dog, like I could obviously help coach you through this. We'd have to do it through like a virtual or something. But you need to stop focusing on what you can do with this dog, and you need to stop making excuses that their emotions play too much into anything, because you need to be empathetic to the fact that, of course, they're going to be scared of this dog, right? And we're not currently doing anything to empower them and make them feel more confident with this dog because we're scared that they're going to screw it up, and that's holding them back from being able to accomplish anything, right? So you need to figure out some way to give them the power to start getting things under control, right? So anyways, so I did this consult with this trainer, same deal, longtime follower, love it, love to hear it. And she had a client she's working with that it was almost the case in point situation, right? She does like day training, basically. This dog has been coming to day training for like months, right?
Gotcha.
And the dog is phenomenal with her. Doesn't have any issues, right? Like super responsive, very respectful, this and that, right? But the owners are like sending her all these videos of the dog, like resource guarding things in the house and jumping on them and like giving them attitude when they try to get them to do stuff and like et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And she kind of said the same thing. She's like, well, like they just don't get it kind of thing. Right. And I was like, okay, well, like, I basically did the same thing that I'm doing right now with her, where I was like, well, what have we done to try to teach them through things? I was like, pretend I'm the owner. Tell me what you told them to do to handle these situations. And it was too much gray information of like, you should just have better energy, right? Or you need to correct the dog, or like, you know, use the leash to give corrections or this or that. And I was like, yeah, but like, what does that mean? Right? Like if I don't know anything about dog training, like correct the dog. I mean, okay. I mean, I don't know, kind of. And then she sent me a video that the owner sent them of them trying to correct the dog when the dog was resource guarding a bully stick. And basically it was just them trying to like drag the dog away from the bully stick. Right? But it's like, what do they don't know any better. Right? Like they don't know what to do in that moment. Right? So I did the same thing. I had her. I was like, all right. She's like, yeah, I use e-collars, but I think, man, Heidi, you might be this person actually. I'm joking, obviously, but like, I think she said the same thing of like, I don't think they're ready for it. They don't get it. I don't want them to screw anything up. And I was like, follow this exact fucking plan, right? Give them a black and white, undeniable way that they can go about solving some of this stuff and isolate a couple behavioral issues at a time to be able to get these things under control. Right? So she's like, okay, dog's going home today from day training. That's exactly what I'm going to do. That's exactly what she had them do. And she's starting to get some progress from it. So it's like, we have to simplify things for people, and we need to make sure that like, we just need to make sure that we're like, I push, like, I know, like, Heidi, you're not like being intentionally, like I said, like judgmental of the client or like putting yourself on a pedestal or anything like that. I know you're not trying to do that. And I know this client that I worked with wasn't trying to do that either, but like, we forget that like our clients that we work with have zero understanding of dog training. And they wouldn't be hiring us if they just intuitively knew how to be around dogs in a way where the dog was like, oh, like maybe I should listen to this person. And all the subconscious little things we do with the leash and interruptions we give and this and that get the dog to just be like, oh, like this person's clearly in charge right now, which is why, Heidi, why do you think the dog after 5 minutes is completely different with you? Because of all of the subconscious things that you're doing with the dog, and because the dog doesn't have the history of reinforcement that it has with the owner of being able to push them around in all of these types of ways, right? So we forget that sometimes, and we just focus on how the dog is with us. And we say, well, the dog's good with me, so it's a you problem. Of course it's a you problem, right? Like that, again, that's why they're hiring us, is because it's a them problem, right? Whether they know it or not, they might not think it's a them problem, obviously.
Yeah.
But on top of us getting them to realize it's a them problem, we need to get them to realize specifically in intense detail what things they are doing or not doing that are causing it to be the case. So like you could even, if you don't want to use a fucking e-collar with this dog, right? You could literally go and watch them work this dog. I'll have people do this sometimes that have, like, there are some people I think that just have a really hard time coaching clients. They're really good with dogs, but have a hard time coaching clients, right? And I'll say, go do a session with this dog and take something to write with or take a video or something like that and start jotting, like, shut up, don't say anything, right? Watch them work the dog for 20 minutes and in as much detail as you can, write out every single fucking little thing that they're doing incorrect. Right?
Yeah.
In as much detail as possible, because sometimes we get stuck in the macro of things of that sucked. You did it wrong. Right?
Yeah.
But when you look at it in the moment and you say, okay, well, as soon as you started walking, right, your leash was too loose, and then the dog hit the end of it, instead of stopping or giving a pop or whatever, you gave out more slack for a second. And then when the dog stopped to sniff, instead of walking at the same pace you were walking at a minute ago, you kind of slowed down to wait and see if they were going to pick back up with you. And then when you gave your correction, you tapped the button before you said no, and the level that you corrected at was way too low. And you know what I mean? And like I could just like break down every fucking little thing that they did wrong. Right. And I'm not going to overwhelm them with all that information initially, but I could say in that session, was there one or two things that they did a few times incorrectly that if I adjust those one or two things, like we're going to be off to the fucking races, right? Like it's going to heed the 80-20 rule, right? Like what's 20% of the things that heed 80% of the results. That's what I'm looking for in that list. And I solve those things first. Right. And then as soon as I've solved those things, it's like, let them be successful. Now we're going to look at the list again, and we're going to say, now these two things are going to heed you the next results. Yeah. And I do the same thing with like when we're training people, right? We should follow the same principles as if we're training dogs. And this is what we do with dogs, right? When we're trying to change their behavior, we don't like go and say, everything. We're solving everything right now, right? We say this and this are really fucking important right now. Let me get these things under control, right? And then we get those things under control, and it's like, all right, now we're getting somewhere. Let's pick two more. Right. Or it's like when I'm teaching my bed stay, I don't right away when I'm teaching my bed stay go bed and expect them to go to it and then hold it for 4 hours while dogs and people and stuff are walking by. We break it into micro steps. I say, okay, well, let me see if I can get you on it first. Right. And then let me see if I can get you to get on it on command. Right. Then let me add micro bits of duration into it. Then let me add some distractions. You know what I mean? Like we incrementally work up to the proficient picture that we want.
Yeah.
And we need to do that with our clients. We have to do that with our clients. We are training our clients commands, right? Those commands are just going to be like things that they do on their own eventually. They're not going to be prompted by me, right? But like we're creating behaviors, right? Yeah. And in order to create proficiency in those behaviors, we need to train them the same way we would train dogs. And if we don't have I think it's with humans, like humans are the only thing we ever look at and we just like, we say broad terms that we don't know what they actually are, right? We go, be more confident, right?
Yeah.
Or we go, be a better leader, right? Or we go, whatever, like insert any other term. And like, what is that? How do you train that? Right. If we're telling somebody that we need them to be this way, we need to be able to train that. And in order to train that, we have to look at the behaviors that we associate with being a better leader. Yeah. Right. Or the behaviors that we associate with implementing structure in the house or whatever. And we need to, like, you could, like, even do these thought exercises, right? Like leader, right? Cool. Like start writing 6 behaviors that are associated with being a better leader, right? And then under each one of those things, make like 4 fucking micro points to what exactly it looks like.
Right.
Right. And then pick a couple of them and train your client how to do those things.
Yeah. It's like making a roadmap to being a leader, or be confident, do these things to become more confident.
Yeah. So that's just what it is, right? And most trainers don't fucking do this, you know, which is why Heidi just said they took him to a board and train for 5 weeks already. They just worked him to death on a treadmill all day just so they could handle him, and he wasn't allowed to play with dogs because they said he was too aggressive. Like there's just a lot of shitty trainers out there, you know, and there's a lot of trainers that just aren't actually going to help their client with stuff. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that a lot of them can never clearly articulate to the client what they need to do differently.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
Yep.
So, damn, that got kind of good, though. I kind of liked that.
Yeah, that was good.
Board and train versus one-on-ones. So I was saying we have this dog that's going to be transitioning to a board and train here soon. And like I said, I'm a pretty firm believer that you should be able to solve behavioral issues via one-on-ones, right?
Yes.
That being said, there are a couple of pros to doing board and trains over one-on-one sessions, right? I think one of the most important ones is that, hold on, let me think. I think one of the most important things for it is sometimes, like, we know there's no cookie cutter way to solve every dog, right? Solve all the behavioral issues.
True.
And when we have dogs that are really, really combative with things, sometimes we need to play around with a couple of different ways of working through issues and have the time to be able to see the long-term results of those things. And this might kind of be contradictory to what I just said, but like, when we are relying on owners to do things at home, like, because they're not dog trainers, they're not going to do things perfectly all the time. And I don't think they're going to mess anything up necessarily, but they might not do things with the precision that we need for them to do to see the true long-term results of things right away with stuff.
Right.
Right. So, like, let's say, you know, this dog, and again, I don't even really know exactly what his behavioral issues are, but like, let's say he's explosively reactive, right? And he's one of those dogs where it's like, it's really hard to manage it and keep it under control. And it really requires like some precision in how we're addressing it. In 1 hour once a week, I am going to be so contingent on the owner doing it absolutely perfectly in between those classes to see if that method is going to work or not.
Right.
Right. And with some cases that are like really intense, right, or really difficult, that could be super challenging to depend on. So in a board and train format, not only can I test multiple things, but I could ensure as I'm testing those things that they are being done to the exact standard in which I want them to be done to see if they're going to work or not, right?
Yeah.
Because from there, I could make a good assessment on this is a method issue or this is an owner issue.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there are some situations where it's a method issue, right? Like, you could do it perfectly all the time, right? But like, even in doing it perfectly, there's a limit to how far you're going to get with it, and we need to alter the method then at that point.
Yeah.
Right? To which why I tell clients all the time, like, if I have a client that's struggling with something, right, and I go to their, like, with whatever, right, and I go to their house to like work with them, the only time I ever get concerned that we're not going to be able to get past a serious aggression case, right, or dogs fighting in the house case, because usually with those ones I would say, is if I come to the house and there's nothing for me to critique. You're following the method exactly as planned, right, and we're still struggling with the behavioral issue, right? That's the only time I'm ever like, the method isn't working and we need to alter course here, right?
Yeah.
But as long as I go there and there's still little things to tweak and adjust, I know it's not a method issue just yet, right? So the board and train allows me, if we're really struggling with getting something under control, and I feel like I've tried different methods and we're not getting anywhere with any of it and stuff like that, it allows me to be able to really test each one of those and see method issue or owner issue, and then make adjustments from there as I need to, right? That I'd say is the biggest thing, right?
Yeah.
The other thing too is, as we were just talking about with adjusting relationships, there are times when there can be, in solving certain behavioral issues, a lot of conflict as you're working past an issue, right? And I tell people all the time, the conflict is not the important part. Working through the conflict is important, but getting out on the other side where we've worked past the conflict and the dog can then flourish into the new rules and boundaries, if you will, that is where most of the learning happens. And that's where most of the actual rehabilitation starts to take place, right? In one-on-ones, when a dog is only coming in for 1 hour, like 1 hour is not enough time for me to work through conflict and get the dog to then see me different and flourish into the new rules and boundaries on the other side. So sometimes as you're working through that conflict with particularly difficult dogs, we end the session, because we have to end the session before we've really hit a point where the dog is like accepted into it. So we find ourselves in this cycle of, they come in for the session, there's a lot of conflict, then they leave right before the conflict has been completely resolved. So then we create this like conditioned pattern where they start anticipating nothing but the conflict every time they come here. They get more guarded. It makes it more difficult to work through the conflict, and we run into bigger issues then from that. Right? So that can happen sometimes, like I said, with particularly challenging dogs.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
I look at like a dog like Fritzy, right? Who there was a lot of conflict in working through things initially, and then he ended so good. I look at a dog like him, and I think that would have been a really difficult one-on-one program.
That would have been tough.
You know, like I'm sure we could have found a way to create stability and stuff with it, but like that would have been, excuse me, that would have been a tough one-on-one program to do, because the conflict I had to go through with him, like there were some sessions I did with him that were like 2.5 hours, right? Because we had to work through the conflict, then like really make sure emotionally he recovered from it on the back end. Right. And I would have been so contingent on the owner doing everything right at home in order to make that good, which I actually am confident that that would have worked, because he had like one of the best owners that I've worked with in the last couple of years, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that would have been tough. So those are a couple pros and cons, I think, to the board and train. I think we have a question here.
Yeah, we do. I just was waiting until you wrapped up. You feel wrapped up? Okay. Ashley is going to ask, do some dogs have genetic anxiety or other behavior issues, such as German Shepherds? Is this why people prefer to buy instead of adopt? Is the issue the owners or dogs not being well bred, or is it both?
This is a good question.
It is, actually.
It's actually a really good question. I'm going to try to answer this like one at a time as we go through this. So,
Okay.
Do dogs have genetic anxiety or other behavioral issues like German Shepherds? Yes. But like there's no dog that's bred to be anxious.
Right.
You know what I mean? So two things happen, right? So you have dogs that have genetic predispositions, right? So when you look at the big fucking dog book here that has every breed under the sun in it and stuff like that, there are traits that are consistently associated with those dogs, right? Now, those traits, getting back to my list of like making things deeper and deeper and deeper, when you have a dog that's designed to have like high prey drive, right? Like to do hunting or this or that with, that can present itself in other behavioral issues if those genetic needs are not being fully met. Right. So like they have no outlets for the prey drive. We try to control it. They're going to have the urge to exhibit prey drive, which could show itself in like, we see it with like light chasing, or chasing shadows, right? Or chasing the cat in the house or whatever, insert any behavioral issues, right? So yes, all dogs have genetic predispositions, and it's important to research the dog that you have to know if those genetic predispositions are going to work against your life or with your life, right? And to see if it's something that you realistically can fulfill as best as you can, right? Sure. Now, the anxiety, where the anxiety tends to come from, particularly with dogs like German Shepherds and whatever, and a lot of your other hunting breeds and stuff that can be very neurotic, is in breeding programs, right? When you are trying to breed, and I'm not a breeding expert, right? But like I knew a lot of people that did, a lot of breeding, and obviously I understand how this stuff works from a loose standpoint. But when people are breeding Belgian Malinois, for example, right? The lineage in which they are breeding dogs tends to be fairly close. I'm not saying inbreeding. I'm not saying breeding, mothers and sons or this or that. You know what I mean? But like the lineage can get really close because they want to maintain the integrity of what they've created, right? Additionally, let's say you have a dog that has really good bite drive, right? Like a Malinois, like a lot of the sport dog trainers try to breed for really good bite drive, right? There is, I should actually like get more information on this so I can speak as clearly as possible on it. But like the closer in lineage you get when you're breeding them, the more it enhances specific traits, right?
Okay.
So you might, by breeding a little closer in the lineage than you would want to, get more intense versions of some of those traits. But that also really fucks with the genetic pool and can create a lot of instability and anxiety issues and stuff like that as well. Right. So the reason why I think with certain breeds like German Shepherds and Malinois and stuff like that we see a lot of these like genetic anxious behaviors is due to those tight line breedings that they're doing that compound and create these kind of messes of dogs. And we see that like a good breeder is going to know kind of where the lines are with all of that kind of stuff and avoid a lot of these issues. But a lot of your backyard breeders, they're just like, this dog looks good. This dog looks good. Let's breed them together, right? And they're not going to be aware of, obviously, a lot of like the anxious tendencies that those dogs might have. And some of that is unrelated to even tight line breedings. Like a lot of people will just breed straight for looks and not off temperament. So they wind up breeding two just genetically really unstable dogs together because they think they look good. And they get a bunch more dogs that might look good but are just incredibly genetically unstable. And I think we see the trend happen where you see a lot of anxious actual breeds. We tend to see a lot of that come about when certain breeds come into style. So German Shepherds are like a popular dog. People like German Shepherds and want German Shepherds. So there's probably a lot more people backyard breeding them that create these problems.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the initial question. Is this why people prefer to buy instead of adopt? No, I think the adopt, don't shop thing is a completely different conversation that has more to do with just like people's like perceived ethics of creating more dogs in a world where there's a bunch of homeless dogs. I think a lot of the people that prefer to buy just want a very specific breed. There definitely is a percentage of people that think that dogs with a really bad past are going to be very anxious and aggressive and stuff like that. But I don't find that there to be much of a correlation between that. I just think that, like in my case, like Vito, who's under the table right now, which by the way, dude's getting so big and he's taking up a lot of space under here.
I know.
But like when I got Vito, I wanted a Malinois, so I went to a breeder for him. Right? I'm not adopt, don't shop. I'm not shop, don't adopt. Right? I just wanted a fucking Malinois, so I found a Malinois breeder for it. Right? And then your last question, is the issue the owners or dogs not being well bred or both? This is a good question too. This is like the nature or nurture conversation. Right?
Getting deep.
Both are important. Both are important, right? I do find that nature tends to be more important than nurture. Right? There are just dogs that their genetic predispositions that they have are so sound that they could be run through a whole fucking list of terrible things happening to them and they're going to come out okay on the other end. Right? And then there's other ones that have such a shit genetic predisposition that you could run them through the seemingly perfect dog life and they're going to come out terrible on the other end. Right?
True.
Nurture can impact how severely in either of those that works out, but nature I find is the most important. So yeah, that's kind of my shtick on that. That was a great question.
Yeah, I liked all this.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Heidi did say, I have had both genetically anxious and completely stable German Shepherds. With training and working with them, you would never know, but I could still see the uneasiness with the crap genetic dog.
Yeah, I mean, you could make the best out of most genetics.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, there are some that are really terrible that, you're going to be capped off a little bit with things, but
Right.
you could make the best out of it. Like, if you know how to adjust your training approach based on those genetics, you could take a really genetically messed up dog and make it pretty good. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's our job as behavioral modification dog trainers, is to take dogs with bad genetic predispositions, because most of them have bad genetic predispositions, and help owners to be able to make the best out of that dog. That is literally our job.
Right.
Right? But I wouldn't expect average owners to know how to do that. So.
Right.
I'm happy to answer any further questions anybody might have. Looks like we got like 10 viewers on here. If anybody's got anything, hit me with it quick and I'll answer it or jive on it. I did like these topics though. And yeah, if not, we're going to hop off here in like a minute or two.
Yeah.
You got anything else, Josh?
No.
You want to give everybody your out of 10 Spider-Man review?
I give it a 9 out of 10.
I think 9 out of 10 is pretty fair.
Yeah.
I think it was great. I walked out, I was like fantastic.
Amazing.
Right?
Amazing.
8.5, 9 feels good.
Yeah, 8.5, 9.
I really want to go see the Odyssey. We were gonna go see
it?
the Odyssey while we were out there, but Spider-Man came out at the same time, so we went to go see that instead.
Yeah.
The theater right here does it in 70 millimeter.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So it's like one of the few theaters you can go see it in 70 millimeter.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to try to go see that. It's supposed to rain most of the weekend, so I think we might go see it this weekend.
You better check tickets because I've heard that's
Selling
been
out quick.
the 70
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Did you know Christopher Nolan had IMAX make cameras specifically
I
for
think
that?
you told me that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so because live, like the IMAX cameras go, so they have to redub
Yeah.
everything
That's
when they do that.
insane.
So they call this sarcophagus.
Yeah.
And they put the camera in it, and then 4 dudes like hold it up, and then they're all like walking around with this like one. It's like 600 pounds or something.
Yeah.
But it's like made to keep the sound inside of it.
That's crazy.
So they don't have to redub the entire movie.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, guys. I'm ending the stream.
All right.
Catch you all on the next one.
Thank you guys.